welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. It is live from our studio here at Adesanwe, Kanda in Accra. I am Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Coming up this evening, government to begin immediate implementation of legal education reform bill after assent by President John Dramani Mahama.
Immediate implementation will start with the establishment of the Council for Legal Education, which is the body that will oversee legal education in the country. We'll also start the process of accreditation of the law schools.
We have details of this particular story after President Mahama signed the bill into law. Also coming up, Anti-graft campaign has welcomed presidential assent to the value for money office bill, but say the focus must now shift to the swift and effective operationalization of the law. And later in the bulletin, state-owned produce buying company PBC is reportedly facing severe financial challenges with debts set to exceed 673 million cedis and a looming risk of asset seizures by creditor banks. We'll tell you more. Before we get into the details of these stories, here are the news summaries with Grace Hamwa Ajiman. Hello, Grace.
Hi, Martin. Let's begin with the Ghana Police Service, who is strongly denying allegations of paper leakage and bribery in a recent police promotion examination, describing the claims as false, baseless, and without merit. In a press release issued on Sunday, May 10, and signed by Deputy Commissioner of Police Grace Ansakofi, Director General of Public Affairs, the service said it had cited a publication by the Herald newspaper making the allegations and wished to set the record straight. The police service noted that the promotion examination in question was conducted by the University of Cape Coast, an institution it described as having a high reputation, a proven track record, and recognized integrity in administering such examinations. Away from that, the administrator of the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, Aja Obobia Dakopoku, says her outfit has made a strategic investment of in excess of 36 million into a specialist training program as part of efforts to strengthen Ghana's specialist healthcare workforce and improve equitable access to specialized care nationwide. Through these partnerships, all regions of Ghana will benefit from expanded specialist trainings, and she was providing an update on the implementation of the fund during the Government Accountability Series on Monday, May 11. Martin, that will be it for the news summaries.
Thank you very much, Grace. Let's settle for the details of our stories now, starting from the Office of the President, where His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has assented to the Legal Education Reform Bill, officially paving way for major changes in Ghana's legal education system amid years of controversy over access to professional legal training. The new law is expected to decentralize professional legal education, expand access to legal training, and reform the admission and regulatory framework governing the training of lawyers in Ghana. Supporters say the reforms will end long-standing bottlenecks and make legal education more accessible, while critics have raised concerns about maintaining standards and ensuring proper implementation. Speaking at the Jubilee House, President John Mahama emphasized the importance of the bill to legal education.
Regulate legal education and ensure the highest standards in terms of legal education, but also to open up the space, for more opportunity for legal education in Ghana. This particular act has been one that many aspiring lawyers have been looking up to, so it's been signed.
And you heard President John Dramani Mahama moments after signing the legal education reform bill into law. And still at the event, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Dominic Ayine Doctor, described the assent as a major milestone in reforming the country's justice and legal education system. He said implementation of the reform will start immediately.
This morning, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana has signed into law the Legal Education Bill 2026. As he himself said, this is a much anticipated reform bill or reform law that is supposed to radically reform legal education to create equality of opportunity for persons aspiring to be lawyers in this country. As a result of the fact that presidential assent has been given to the law, we are now ready for implementation. Immediate implementation will start with the establishment of the Council for Legal Education, which is the body that will oversee legal education in the country. We'll also start the process of accreditation of the law schools that will be running the law practice course for those who have LLBs and desire to write the bar exam. All of that will start this year. We'll be making budgetary provision for the implementation in the 2027 budget to be announced by the finance minister in November this year.
And you heard the voice of Dr. Dominic Ayine, Ghana's minister in charge of is the minister in charge of justice and also the Attorney General of the Republic. Let's try and get some further understanding to this particular law, which used to be a bill over a number of months, debated back and forth, but now we seem to have settled on the components that have been now given a presidential assent. So like you heard the Attorney General indicate, in the next few days or the next line of action would be the implementation, the immediate implementation of the content of the law that have been captured. And we are going straight to the phone lines now and speak to Roxanne Nelson Dapamekpo, who is one of the key proponents and leaders for this particular bill, which is now law. Mr. Dapamekpo, a very good evening to you. You are also the majority chief whip and key sponsor of the legal education reform. Well, I should call it law now, cannot be a bill because now it has gotten presidential assent. Thank you for your time this evening. What exactly does this mean for, the average young man who wants to, pursue law like yourself?
Okay, thank you very much, and good evening to your listeners. What this means is that the era where Ghana School of Law had monopoly to provide facilities for legal education for purposes of people becoming, or persons who go through them becoming lawyers, it's over. Because under the new law, the Ghana School of Law itself is a competitor. We have to establish it properly as a creature of statutes, and also made other faculties of law, but now they want to be called law schools, are also competitors in providing professional legal training in this country, in addition to offering academic programs leading to the award of either an LLB or a diploma, whichever the curriculum provides. So all the 13 or 15 recognized faculties of law, in addition to the Ghana School of Law itself, will apply for accreditation. And when they meet the standards or they tick the boxes on the checklist, they will be accredited to offer legal education in this country. So every young man or prospective student should be hopeful that after 66 years of monopoly, we are here. There's broader access to legal education, and they can only portend well for all of us. Especially when you consider that in excess of 3,000 Ghanaians are studying in the UK, in Kenya, in Tanzania, in Zambia, in Botswana, in Uganda, in Rwanda, in Sierra Leone, in Gambia, just to obtain a professional qualification in law because of how limited access to pursue professional training in law is in this country.
Right.
So we are hoping that this new law will rather reverse the trend. So our brothers in Sierra Leone, Nigeria, Gambia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda will rather come to Ghana to study, as it used to be the case. When Ghana Law School was established in 1958, there were no law schools in the whole of Sub-Saharan Africa. So a lot of those people came here to train. And if you know what I mean, it means will be attracting some good forex, because they will be paying like international students. They pay higher and they pay in foreign currency. But the new system now is draining the country, because these 3,000 Ghanaians who are studying outside are taking money from here and giving to those countries.
Right.
And they are law schools.
So clearly this is a step in the right direction, and like you're indicating, it seems to be having majority support, not just in majority in the terms of parliament, but generally anyone that wants to pursue legal education will certainly buy into this. The concern, however, is that of quality, and we've increased access, but how does that commiserate with quality? Because some critics argue that expanding and decentralizing legal training could weaken the standards within the legal profession. What do you say?
Okay, what I have discovered is that a lot of the naysayers or the people who are opposed to this reform have refused to read the law, and they've gone to town and making arguments with their own ideas. Because if you read the law, the standards have been toughened under the new law. We have heightened the standards. We have made things tougher. We have introduced a lot of quality control measures. So, for instance, under Section 9 of the law, which is the content of curriculum, it says this: 1, the curriculum for Bachelor of Laws program shall provide instructions that are necessary for the impartation of particular subject matter or skill, practical and theoretical training in the law, an opportunity to take elective courses, training in information technology, predetermined course content, instructions on ethics and values of the legal profession, practice-based skills and competency training, including oral presentation and advocacy training, training in interviewing and counseling, legal research and at least 2 writing experiences, applied legal writing, including drafting contracts, pre-trial preparation and fact investigation, including discovery, motion practice, assessing evidence and utilizing experts, trial practice skills, transactional skills, formation of corporations, client service and professional civility and professional responsibility, instruction in alternative. Look, when I was an undergraduate LLB, these things were not in our curriculum at all. But even in the LLB, we are introducing this. Let me take you to the content for the curriculum for the professional training. Look, so the standards are much higher. And our naysayers, they refuse to read the law. And they are just talking. Standard to 4. Standard to 4. When you ask them what to make the standard for, they are not able to point to one thing.
Okay.
Meanwhile, we have rather introduced measures that will increase or that has heightened the standards. They don't want to read about that and learn.
Okay. Kindly, Mr. Dafamako, kindly hold on for me. One of the individuals you are probably referring to, maybe not directly, of having concerns, maybe not necessarily a naysayer, but having concerns about the bill in its current form, has joined us. The Honorable Vincent Ekoesifua, MP for Old Tafo, has joined us also on this subject. So maybe if you can put these concerns across, then you can address it so we can make progress. Thank you. Kindly hold on for me. Mr. Sifua, good evening, and thank you also for joining us on 3FM. Yes, Mr. Sifua, if you can hear me, kindly unmute so we hear your thoughts. And the first question would be, well, it looks as though now we have the legal education reform law, and there were earlier concerns that you had raised about the bill as it were and in its current form. can you highlight probably just one or two to see why you thought that in that form it needed some reform on itself? Mr. Sifwa, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Good, I can hear you too. So kindly go on.
So let me hear you. What's the question?
So I was asking that you had some concerns about the legal reform, the legal education reform bill. It's gone through the process, now it's law. Are those concerns still, what you have, and what are they? If you can give about one or two, so we can have a conversation around it.
Also, that's the misconception out there. It's the misconception out there because if you read everything that I have written about the legal
Hello? Well, maybe I need to just wrap up with Mr. Roxanne Nelson Dapamako, the Majority Chief Whip. So then, because I wanted the concerns of, if there were any, to be raised, then maybe it gives an opportunity.
Can I respond?
Yes. He hasn't made his point, but I'm sure
you haven't followed the banter between himself and I, because he went to town last week and bastardized everybody, the government, the president, calling us liars, that we deceive prospective law students and promise them reforms. We passed the law and we have refused to assent to it. So I responded to him formally. And he still wouldn't, he hasn't read the law, so he was still infesting people with his ideas, which are not borne out by the terms of the law. So I keep telling him that if he wants us to make this debate formally, he should pay attention to what the law says and come out with issues that he thinks are borne out by the terms of the law. He shouldn't be writing his own ideas and think that is what we are doing. It's not. And so, for instance, he tells you that there are a lot of concerns out there, misconceptions out there, if you pay attention to the things he has written. How do you write your own ideas and think that is what the new legal education bill is talking about? So Vincent should stop misleading the public and pay attention to what the law says. Now, I think the question we should ask is that once the law has effective immediately come into effect, what are the immediate steps we should take? So that, for instance, under Section 1 of the law, we are establishing what we call the Council for Legal Education and Training. So our attention should be how early can that be constituted? Because when that statutory body is constituted, they have the mandate to now receive accreditation proposals and letters from the law schools and the faculties for purposes of vetting and issuing them with temporary permits and eventually a full accreditation. That is what I think we should look at. Then second, how early are we going to appoint the Director General, then the Registrar of the Council? So these are statutory officers whose appointment have to be quickly done, because they are going to be the driving grace behind how the council will function. So that's where my concern is. But not I say first ideas that there is some exam, some imaginary entrance exam that it keeps happening about when it is not borne out by the law.
Okay. And maybe before you take leave of us, Honorable Dapamako, the other bit of, for instance, whether there's going to be a standing body that would supervise the existing institutions that will start running the legal education, plus have a framework for ones that are yet to set up to make sure that they fall within the same standards. Do we have anything like that in place? How stringent are these? Like you?
I don't understand the question.
Sorry, I'm asking. I'm asking that. Are there standards that the current institutions that might want to start pursuing legal education or offering legal education, the standards they need to follow, is there a body or an institution or a group of persons or probably an individual that would ensure that they follow a criteria or meet the standards before they can start offering these courses? Those are the current institutions that exist.
Yeah, the standards are already borne out by the law. The law has set out the standards. In any case, the regulations that will be used to operationalize this law will set out those guidelines. But the point I'm making is that in doing the stakeholder consultations for purposes of passing this law, we had agreed as to what a faculty or a law school must have for purposes for accreditation. And they know. So to tell you this, all the faculties are ready. They have prepared their accreditation applications and they are ready because they have ticked the box that we are looking for a certain number of books or volumes of books in your library, e-library, number of faculties. They have done all those preparations because they were integral to the stakeholder consultation and they know the requirements that we are asking for. So they are prepared. All of us have been waiting for the assent. So as soon as the assent has come today, I'm sure from later in the week onwards, you will hear the measures that will be put in place for purposes of receiving the accreditation, assessing them, issuing accreditations, rolling out steps to give effect to the full implementation of the law. You heard the Deputy Attorney General say that full implementation will be realized in September. It means that between now and August, all those procedural matters will be gone through, so that first, that is the new academic year will start from September. They will be ready to go through training under the new regime.
Great. All right. Thank you for your time and thoughts and the understanding you have brought to this particular issue. We are grateful for your time and certainly be engaging you as we go forward to ensure that the entire country is on the same page.
If anybody has further difficulty, the person should avert his mind to Section 93 of the law. It talks about the transitional provisions. Between the new law and the old law, how the regime will operate. Everything is captured.
Okay. Roxy Nelson Dapamako, thank you for your time again.
It's my pleasure.
He is the majority chief whip and also a lead proponent of the new legal education reform law. It was a bill they pushed and then now it has been passed by Parliament, and today His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President, assented to it. So it gives us a clear idea of what the next steps will be. We're trying to see whether Vincent Esefua, who is a Member of Parliament for Old Tafo, he had a few issues earlier about the bill, as it were, and wanted to get his thoughts on it, to at least bring it up so we can have a conversation about, smoothing the teething areas or the areas where he had concerns with. But we seem to be having a challenge with that connection to the Old Tafo MP, an MP, who clearly says that the bill was rather going to be a bit more problematic in its form. So now that it is law, what are the next steps he intends to take? What can be done? And then also, what does this mean for you if you are interested in pursuing legal education in the coming days? Well, your thoughts are always welcome on our various social media platforms. On Facebook, we are streaming. On YouTube, we are there as well as on Twitter. So do just send us a message about this, what it means for you. Those of you who've gone through the current legal process, what do you make of the law? That is, if you've read the new law, what do you make of it? And how do you think that eases the acquisition of legal education or legal training in the country? We'll be happy to hear from you. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. We're shifting our attention to some other issues now, and we're staying in the office of the President because His Excellency John Dramani Mahama has also assented to what is called the Value for Money Office Bill 2026. The new law establishes a value for money office to independently assess whether public projects and contracts deliver value to the Ghanaian taxpayer before and during implementation. Government says the measure will help curb waste, improve efficiency, and ensure prudent use of state resources. The Minister for Finance, Dr. Asiedu-Dartey, spoke after the President had signed the bill into law.
Today is a good day. His Excellency the President this morning signed into law the Value for Money Office Act. This singular signature and assent will mean that going into the future, the Republic of Ghana and the government of Ghana will curtail public sector expenditure that has actually risen as a result of overinflation of contracts, the government contracts. What we seek to do going into the future will be that we will set up the office, and all single source procurement will have to go through the Office for Value for Money. In the past, the legal division of the Ministry of Finance has been the one that conducts Value for Money office. They did not have the requisite skills and ability to deal with Value for Money. And so what we've done is to properly institutionalize the Value for Money office. President Mahama, as part of his campaign pledge, promised to establish the Value for Money office, and today he has graciously assented to it following Parliament's passage. I want to use this opportunity to assure the people of Ghana that the menace of public sector pardon of contracts and overinflation of contracts will be curtailed by this signature. What we seek to do is to use the next 6 months to properly constitute the office, nominate the leadership of the Value for Money office, and constitute the technical team that will ensure the implementation of the Act. And so I believe that beginning 2027 January, this office will be fully implemented, and Ghanaians will see the need of a Value for Money office. I have seen Value for Money office being operated in other countries, and I can tell you for a fact that if there's one single office that can pay for itself from day one, it is the Office for Value for Money office, because it's reduced public expenditure and obviously create fiscal space that will be used to develop other sectors of the economy.
And that is Finance Minister Dr. Asiedu-Dartey reiterating the need for the Value for Money office, which has now been set up, and the President has assented to it. So he's given a timeline that latest by January 2027, that office should be fully established and running, where every contract largely that the state will be signing will have to go through this institution to ensure that we are getting, like the office name is, Value for Money, and every other involvement that the country will be engaged in, we should be having Value for Money. So that's the job primarily of this particular institution that has just been established. We'll delve deeper into that and try and find some further answers or clarity on what it all means going forward. But this time around, let's turn our attention to the major commodity that Ghana produces, which is cocoa. And Ghana's state-owned cocoa buyer, the produce buying company, PBC, is facing severe financial difficulties, with debts reportedly exceeding 673 million cedis and possible asset seizures by banks, according to a Reuters report. The report says thousands of cocoa farmers and purchasing clerks have allegedly gone unpaid for months due to ongoing liquidity challenge with the cocoa sector. Reuters indicates that more than 9,000 bags of cocoa delivered by farmers remain unpaid for, while banks are seeking to recover about 257 million cedis owed by PBC through a court-approved process that could allow the sale of company assets. The development comes despite earlier government assurances to revive the struggling cocoa purchasing firm. In February this year, Finance Minister Dr. Asiedu-Dartey pledged support to restore PBC's operations after years of financial decline and shrinking market share. Government and the Ghana Cocoa Board also announced the release of more than 3.6 million. Government and the Ghana Cocoa Board also announced the release of more than 3.6 billion cedis to licensed buying companies to support cocoa purchases and farmer payments. However, Reuters is reporting that several buying companies, including PBC's, continue to face serious liquidity challenges or shortfalls despite those interventions. The industry observers warn that the situation could impact farmer livelihoods and Ghana's anticipated mid-crop harvest if the financial challenge persists. Let's speak to Thomas Ayisi-Kuma, Deputy Managing Director in charge of Finance and Administration, PBC Limited. Mr. Ayisi-Kuma, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening, my brother Martin, and good evening to your listeners.
Great. How true is this story that PBC is facing some serious financial debts in excess of 600 million Ghana cedis, and that it could possibly lead to your assets being seized?
Thank you, my brother, for the opportunity. It's actually the truth. The President, Excellency John Dramani Mahama, appointed myself and the MD, Asiedu-Dartey, last year in May to PBC. And we came to meet a debt of that amount, almost about $60 million in our books, with about $25 million of such an amount owed to banks and the rest to other third parties. On the confiscation of assets or the sale of our assets, judgment was given to these banks as far back as August 2023, but the judgment was stayed until we resumed, and talks started at the boardroom on the resolution of this debt. But it's quite unfortunate the bank sees the discussion has taken a lot of time. Hence, they decided to enforce the judgment. So just about last month, on the 30th of April, the court bailiff with some auctioneers came to our end and confiscated some of our vehicles, including some articulator trucks, vehicles belonging to the executive management, and some others, including plants or generators that supply the office with electricity or power when the lights goes off. So PBC is finding itself in a very difficult situation at the moment.
That is quite revealing and very serious as well, because of the role you play in the Ghana's cocoa value chain. But are you aware of how we accumulated this debt, over $60 million, you say? How did we get here?
All right. PBC, since its inception, has basically relied on Cocoa Board for funding for the purchase of cocoa in Ghana. It has been so until 2023-24, where Cocoa Board couldn't access the syndicated facility. But before then, the money allocated to PBC year after year wasn't enough for the company to make the needed revenue to overcome its operational costs and overheads. So management at that time had to go in for other facilities, loans from banks, to augment what Cocoa Board was giving them. I think it's the management of this facility from 2017-2018 that has brought the company to this level. Management were not able to make the needed revenue to pay both interest and principal. So when the syndication was stopped, PBC couldn't go to the market again. And banks had to chase them for those loans they've taken. And PBC wasn't able to pay. That is how come it has traveled from there until now.
Wow.
So these were facilities they took to augment what Cocoa Board was giving them, because what Cocoa Board was giving wasn't enough for the company to turn around its fortunes.
And we are talking about this starting from 2017, 2018, thereabout.
Yes, exactly so.
Right, but then it became quite serious, and some of these institutions or companies went to court in 2024, like you indicated, and 2023, 2024, and they were able to get judgment.
Yes, in 2023, that was when they went to court and they received judgment. I think the government of that day, at that time, came in panically to pay something to offset part of the facility. We get from the books, the government of that time, the Ministry of Finance at that time, made a part payment of 66 million. By then, the debt was around 311 Ghana cedis, 311 million Ghana cedis. So after the payment of the 66 million, the debt was reduced to its current level. That is debt owed to banks. So now we are having around 247 million or $25 million owed to banks, taking away the debts owed to third parties.
Okay. So we would come to the specifics of how you intend to resolve this, but how is this affecting your operations in general? Because what we know is that, like your name suggests, produce buying company, yours is to buy the cocoa from the farmers and then do what exactly with it? Store it or sell it to the international market? What exactly is your role in the cocoa value chain, and how is this current problem affecting your operations?
In fact, Martin, PBC has always been described as the buyer of last resort. And by that terminology, what we are implying to say is that whenever every LBC stops, when every LBC decides to leave the market, PBC should be the only company that must stay and serve the nation's interest. Even when everybody is making losses and fears to go into the market, PBC should be at the rescue. There are hinterlands where tractors and cars, Kia's trucks are not able to go to cut cocoa because of the state interest in PBC. PBC, by regulation, is supposed to go to all those hinterlands where it is deemed unprofitable to even operate as an LBC. PBC is expected to operate in those areas. So the role of PBC in Ghana's cocoa sector cannot be underestimated. But it's unfortunate we have come to this far. Should PBC be in full operation and in full capacity, when these off-takers have even exited, PBC should have been the anchor for Ghana's cocoa farmers. But now, because we don't have the fiscal space to even borrow on the back of our balance sheet to get some money to pay for stocks, it becomes difficult. Even when Cocoa Board is struggling, PBC could have been able to go to the market, borrow on its balance sheet, go to the market and pay for stocks from farmers. And this problem that we are facing now wouldn't have come to this level. But it's unfortunate. Our balance sheet cannot support us to do anything. We just don't have the fiscal space. And even where off-takers agree to do business with us and advance money to PBC to do business, the fear and the risk is that the banks might hijack our money, lay hands on the monies the off-takers will bring, and use that to offset their facility. So PBC is in the middle of the sea, now not knowing whether to go front or to come back. And this is where we are appealing to the Ministry of Finance and government, for that matter, to come to the aid of PBC so that the company can serve its strategic purpose.
Then it brings me to my question of what real intervention can the Finance Ministry or government bring to salvage this situation? So let's say government is able to find some $60 million somewhere and brings it. That is even going to be absorbed or swallowed or taken away because of the debt which is already in place, right?
So first and foremost is how to get away from this bank debt, how to offload this debt of $25 million or 247 million Ghana cedis off the books of PBC. When that alone is done, PBC will be in a position to at least win some off-takers onto its side and get some money to operate. Quite apart from that, there should be this guarantee from Cocoa Board together with Ministry of Finance or government to at least guarantee PBC some percentage share of whatever money they intend to raise in the coming season from the bond market to support PBC so that PBC will be able to do the volumes it is known for doing. PBC has been owing 30% of the market share of the Ghana cocoa production. But of late, for the past 5 years, PBC has not been able to do even 10% of the market share, and this is quite troubling and worrying. For a company that feeds about 600 workforce, if you do less than 5% of the cocoa market, you can't pay your staff. You can't pay your overheads. You can't overcome your operational expenses. And that is how come PBC debt is continuing to mount and mount day after day. Without making the right volumes, it will be difficult for PBC to turn around. So if government and Cocoa Board can guarantee some percentage, minimum percentage, even if 20% for PBC to do, PBC, I'm telling you, within the next 1 or 2 years, will be a company that everybody will envy.
Two final questions before we let you go. So you sound quite confident that if we're able to get that guarantee from the state that is, your operations can gradually start picking up. Are you also confident that the farmers and your stakeholders that you do business with will buy into this government guarantee that they'll be giving to the PBC?
Perfectly so. Farmers have confidence in PBC because PBC exists in all operational areas, all operational cocoa regions. In every cocoa district in Ghana you go, you will see the operational office of PBC. In fact, there are many of these LBCs who are buying cocoa within the country but have no offices. So even when they credit from farmers, it becomes difficult for farmers to chase the owners and managers of these LBCs for their money, even when Cocoa Board has paid them. But for PBC, we are visibly everywhere. If you go to a district and you do not find a district manager, you move to the region and you find PBC regional office. Even if not the regional office, you will see PBC national office. In fact, most of these LBC that are parading in the country operate from their rooms and their homes with no offices, with no depots, with no sheds. So, and this is quite troubling for farmers. So the confidence in PBC on the part of farmers is very solid. For PBC, farmers know that once we give our cocoa to PBC, even if on credit, if 2 months, even if 3 months, government would definitely come. But what about the private operator?
Yeah.
Where do you look for him? Where do you get him if you can't find him? But for government is not running away from anywhere.
Yeah.
So because of government interest in PBC, the confidence level of farmers in the company is very high. And that is where I get my confidence and assurance from. That once all these things are put into proper perspective, PBC will be the LBC of choice.
Okay, well, I said to, but we would have to leave it here for now and hope that in the coming days we'll hear something favorable from government to start seeing progress on resolving this financial impasse. Thank you so much for your time, Mr.
And I'm assuring you that in the coming days, you also hear from farmers professing that government should come to the aid of PBC because that is the only LBC they can trust and can work with. And so I'm promising you, within the coming days, you will hear from farmers themselves what they are expecting from government to do with PBC. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you too. And you heard Thomas Ayisikuma, Deputy Managing Director in charge of Finance and Administration at the Produce Buying Company Limited, that's PBC. They are a major player in Ghana's cocoa value chain, and they are currently drowning in debt in excess of $60 billion or $60 billion. I beg your pardon, $60 million, where if you convert it to the Ghana cedis, about 673 million Ghana cedis, and this debt is actually threatening their assets. So some banks and institutions have taken them to court and won judgment, and some of them want to actually cash out on the judgment that they've been given. So they are going after the assets of PBC, where you heard him talk about some of their pickups and vehicles are being seized, or threats to seize them. The power generators that they have also been, in some areas, there are contentions to confiscate them because they have judgments, you know. And the bone of contention has always been about the fact that they owe. And if you owe, you pay your debt. So he's praying government to step in and help them, because they still have the goodwill of the farmers, and they are hoping that this intervention from government will assist in saving the produce buying company. Well, we're staying on issues of cocoa because it looks like the minority in parliament would not let the cocoa matter rest, especially how they believe government is treating cocoa, the cocoa sector and the farmers in that regard. When we return, we'll let you hear what Alexander Apenyomarkin, the minority leader who led a delegation to some farms or some farming areas, cocoa farming areas, and the interactions they've had with the farmers, and what they are calling the president out to do. Stay with us. Details of all of this and more after the break. This is still 3FM 92.7. You're welcome back. Let's stay on issues of cocoa. The minority in parliament have criticized government over what they describe as misplaced priority, calling out government for abandoning Ghana's major crop that employs many citizens within the agricultural chain. This follows recent drop in cocoa prices, with government citing global reduction in cocoa prices as reason for the development. The minority delegation, led by its leader Alexander Apenyomarkin, and some members of its caucus, including MPs of Assent South, Efijakwabre South, Echiwampomnua, and Offenso South, engaged cocoa farmers within the central region over a recent drop in cocoa prices, with many of the farmers calling out President John Mahama for failing to fulfill his campaign promise to them. Some farmers, sharing their grievances, maintained the reduction in the pricing of cocoa has affected their lot.
If ye cocoa sha ye ton kakankra, no sha bat sodo, besia ba today, mokin my friend Gumudo, Mukune, no cocoa some of the compa one talk. They say, may I then pomash my friend me, or be combined, yell up cocoa. Santa make a minute, you to Mamma no cocoa, my aim of it's here, Ankasa, it's here, Akashabium.
And you had clearly some very frustrated cocoa farmers in the central region expressing their unfortunate challenges they are facing as a result of the drop in global cocoa prices. Well, they were talking to the minority leader and a delegation that he led to interact with them. So, responding to the concerns, Alexander Apenyomarkin criticized government for what he described as misplaced priorities, stressing that the agricultural sector has abandoned. He further stated that the minority is conducting its own research to strengthen its defense of the interest of cocoa farmers in Ghana's agri sector.
I think the government is getting its priorities wrong. The government seems to be focusing on the gold, and they are rather encouraging galamsey. They think that it is true the gold purchase arrangement, this gold board, think that they will stabilize the cedi and manage the economy, but that is not it. An economy that does not produce cannot sustain growth. They virtually abandoned agriculture. Where is Mr. Erikopoku? I have not heard him any day since he became agri minister addressing concerns of farmers. So it appears for NDC, agriculture is not part of their policy. Nothing to transform agriculture, nothing to incentivize agriculture, nothing to help increase production and to help the ordinary farmer. We, the minority, are doing our own research through this data we are collecting. We don't want to blow hot air, like I said. We want to be a minority of substance. It's not about numbers. If you want to enrich governance, it is your depth of knowledge that matter. It's not the numbers, and that is what we seek to achieve.
Alexander Penyomakin is minority leader in Ghana's parliament, and he said that it looks as though government is focusing more on cocoa issues, more on gold issues rather than cocoa. And talking about that, the Accra High Court has directed lawyers of the NPP's Ashanti Regional Chairman Bernard Ntwibo-Esiakun, also known as Chairman Wontumi, to serve documents which they sought to tender in as evidence to state prosecutors. Earlier, former Akonta Mining General Manager Edward Ekwaku told the court during cross-examination that Chairman Wontumi does not deal with documents. The prosecution's first witness indicated that Wontumi's defense was that he is not an academic. Lord Edward Saria, court correspondent, has more in this report.
Bernard Ntwibo-Esiakun, also known as Wontumi, and 3 others have been charged with multiple offenses for allegedly undertaking illegal mining in the Tano Nimri Forest Reserve in the Western region. They have pleaded not guilty and are on bail. In court on Monday, May 11, lawyers of the NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman, led by Andy Apiakubi, continued with the cross-examination of the prosecution's first witness, Edward Kwesi Akwoku. The general manager of Akonta Mining told the court that Wontumi engaged him in 2021 after disclosing that he had Chinese partners who would provide equipment, logistics, and would front the mining operations. Edward Akwoku indicated that in 2022, despite not being issued a mining license, Chairman Wontumi told him to move into Tano Nimri Forest Reserve to mine, noting that he had informed the then Lands Minister. The NPP Ashanti Regional Chairman showed a no objection letter into his request to the minister as permit for the operations. He further explained that indigents of Samraboy protested against the mining activities of Akonta Mining and set heavy-duty trucks belonging to the company ablaze. According to the witness, one of the trucks was provided by the Chinese partners of Wontumi. Asked to produce documentation to prove the owner of the consignment carried by the trucks, the witness disclosed that Wontumi was not in the habit of working with documents, since according to him, he was not an academic. Andy Apiakubi, however, produced a letter which he explained had been authored on behalf of Wontumi and sought to tender it into evidence. Senior State Attorney Nana Maprempe told the court they had not been served with a document. The court therefore ordered the defense lawyers to file the documents into disclosures and serve the state before the next adjourned date. Andy Apiakubi spoke after the hearing.
Never use documents in transactions, but we're trying to prove that that is not the case because he himself has signed documents for and on behalf of A2 and A1 in civil courts. We are seeking to tender that document that he signed in his witness statement in that civil court to vindicate A2, A1 that when necessary they deal documents.
Lord Udasari, TV3 News, Accra.
Right, so on to some other stories before we bring you business and sports that safe is available. Months of military raids, dozens of excavators seized, millions spent on the fight against Galamsey, and yet the Ankobra River still runs brown. Despite repeated operations by security forces in the western region, the dream of restoring the river to its natural state remains out of reach. We go upstream with the Regional Security Task Force led by Brigadier General Musa Waja, retired, to see for ourselves what months of crackdowns have done and could achieve, or the challenges that these crackdowns are facing. Although efforts have gone into trying to salvage the river bodies, there seems to be a lot that we still need to do. There is more in this report by Irama Smith. Unfortunately, we do not have that, but that will be it for our show today. Thank you so much for listening. If you go to our website, 3news.com, we'll have many more stories for you, and certainly not just the big stories making headlines, but then other sectors have also been playing critical roles, and you would know that we are just a little over a month, or probably less than a month, just around a month to the World Cup. And so what's been happening? How is Ghana preparing? How are other countries preparing? What's happening on the sporting front? We have the latest in the world of sports right about now. Stay with us.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. My name is Oreku Ampofo, and with just a month to go, today marks the deadline for the submission of the provisional list for the World Cup. This could comprise from a list of 35 to 55 players ahead of the tournament. Now, this squad is expected to be later pruned into a 26-man squad by June 1st ahead of the World Cup, which kicks off on June 11. However, let's stick with the Black Stars team, because the technical team headed by Carlos Queiroz, they've stepped up their preparations for the World Cup with a month-long data-driven program focused on improving the Black Stars' performance level. Now, according to the Ghana Football Association, the initiative combined scouting, tactical analysis, medical monitoring, and fitness assessment to enhance player readiness ahead of the tournament. The team managed to produce 200 video reports, monitored 170 matches live, attended 30 matches in person, tracked 75 players through scouting networks, and directly observed 30 players as part of the comprehensive evaluation process. Now to some athletics, where Sports and Recreation Minister Kofi Adams has assured Ghanaians that Team Ghana is ready to host and win laurels on home soil during the Senior African Athletics Championships. The competition is expected to take place at the University of Ghana Sports Stadium from May 12 to 17, 2026. Team Ghana is expected to line up with 30 athletes, including the nation's fastest man, Abdu Rashid Saminu, and captain Joseph Paul Amoa. The opening ceremony for the competition is about to take place tonight at the UJ Stadium. But first, let's hear from the Sports Minister.
Team Ghana, we are hosting, and we intend to continue to improve our performance in the sprints, where we have a lot of strength. In Botswana not too long ago, where the World Relays happened, even though we had a challenge last minute where one of our key athletes couldn't make it because of travel challenges, and we had someone replace him almost immediately. We were able to qualify for the World Athletic Competition that will be happening in China later next year. And so it tells you that We are a country that is always ready. Anytime we are called, we will do something. We want to do well in the sprints. We want to improve our performance in other sectors that we haven't been doing too well. And we hope to invest a lot more in athletics. Athletics is one thing that we all loved when we were in school. So it cannot be the case that we will love it whilst we were in secondary school, and all of a sudden at the national level we seem not to be investing so much. We have to invest a lot more and to improve performances of our national athletes.
Well, that was the Minister for Sports and Recreation, Honorable Kofi Adams, bringing an end to the sports segment here on Hot Edition. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. My name is Oreku Ampo.